Welcome to INFS 321 Information Sources. This is session 4, Fact Sources. Students, you remember we classified information sources or reference sources into control, access, directional, and then source types. We are going to examine from this session and subsequent sessions all the control, access, directional sources, as well as the source types. We are starting with fact sources. If you remember, we mentioned fact sources to include almanacs, yearbooks, handbooks, manuals, and directories. So at the end of this session, we are going to look at the usefulness of fact sources. We are going to state similarities or differences, especially between almanacs and yearbooks, and we are going to indicate the criteria for evaluation. You remember in our previous session, we talked about selection and evaluation of reference sources. Now, these criteria will come back, and we are going to note which are the important criteria when you are selecting fact sources. So topic 1, we'll look at overview of fact sources, what they are. We'll look at topic 2, we'll look at facts, almanacs, yearbooks, handbooks, manuals. Topic 3, we'll look at uses of fact sources, the directories, and topic 4, we'll look at the evaluation criteria. We have our reference list, which is SCOMA. So what are fact sources? Fact sources are reference works that provide concise, factual information about many things. They provide current and historical events, organizations, information on organizations, information on people and things, information on countries and governments. They also provide us with statistical trends. Now, all these information are in brief forms, very, very brief. That is why we refer to fact sources as containing concise information. Now, all these fact sources, the information contained in the fact sources, can be found in other reference materials in larger details or in more details. But there are some users who actually need just some brief information. For instance, a user walks in and wants to know the height of Mount Afajatu. He does not want a whole encyclopedia to be able to find it. He just wants just that information, how many kilometers, and that is what fact sources are meant for. So fact sources have in common convenience of use. They just give you the information that you need briefly. No long, detailed write-up. They are most often in single volumes. So you'd have an almanac which is in a single volume, and they summarize and synthesize a lot of information. So they put a lot of data together, a lot of amount of data. They just summarize it so that they give you very easy access to the information so that you do not waste time. Now, because they contain concise information, if you need to do any detailed or analytical work, fact sources are not the reference sources to use. You need to consider other type of sources which will give you detailed information. So let's look at the first fact source, almanacs. What are almanacs? They are compendium. Compendium refers to a summary. So a summary of useful factual and statistical information. They contain retrospective information as well as current information. And they have a whole lot of information in almanacs. Another definition for almanacs is a compendium of useful data and statistics relating to countries, personalities, events, subjects, and the like. Now, the first almanac appeared in the 16th and 17th centuries, and they appeared as calendars and astronomical data. These days, calendars, almanacs contain more than just calendars and astronomical data. They have undergone several changes, and so they contain sports information, entertainment information, zip code information, business addresses. They have all kinds of retrospective facts and statistics. Almanacs are issued annually. Another fact source is a yearbook. They are annual volumes of current information in descriptive and/or statistical form. They are also a compendium. They carry several pieces of information, but they are of a particular given year. You remember I mentioned the almanac contains retrospective information. That means information of past years and current information. But the yearbook only contains information of a particular year. So, and it's usually the preceding year. So if you talk of a yearbook 2013, the information contained in that particular yearbook will be information coming from 2012. That is the year preceding it. And the purpose of the yearbook is to record the year's activity, either by country or by subject or specialized area. Now, we do have encyclopedias which also issue yearbooks because of the nature of encyclopedias. So let us look at yearbooks. Let's continue with yearbooks. So these yearbooks include a chronology of the year, biographies of newsmakers, obituaries, sports news. So they contain miscellaneous information. Now, they contain information which is longer in description than the almanacs. So the almanacs are very brief, maybe just the figures. The yearbooks are also brief, but slightly longer descriptions. And they are also in single volumes because they try to have very brief information. They provide information about people, events, or trends in a specific area. I mentioned earlier that encyclopedias also keep yearbooks. But why do they keep yearbooks? They are not just the regular yearbooks that you look at, such as the Statesman's Yearbook or the Commonwealth Yearbook. Encyclopedias also keep yearbooks. Their yearbooks are slightly different. And what is the purpose of the encyclopedia yearbooks? Their purpose is to keep the basic set up to date. For instance, if we have the Encyclopedia Britannica, which is in 32 volumes, obviously the publishers cannot publish the encyclopedia every year, 32 volumes. And so they need to keep that encyclopedia up to date. So they do publish yearbooks to supplement that basic set of the 32 volumes. So the yearbook in the encyclopedia also bring out the summary of major events that took place in a particular year. And they give information, comprehensive view of events or trends of events over a period of time in that supplement to the encyclopedia. Now, most libraries would keep the encyclopedia yearbooks together with the main set, because when the encyclopedia is going to be reviewed, it's not all the information in the yearbooks which will enter that encyclopedia. The encyclopedia always tries to keep to the number of volumes so that they do not exceed a particular volume that they have programmed it to be. Now, these yearbooks also are useful to answer the fact type questions. So not too long, they give you the information so that you'll be able to quickly get your information and move on with what you require. Now, as I was talking, I mentioned almanacs and I mentioned yearbooks, and I tried to bring out some differences and similarities. So now let's do it properly here. Yearbooks and almanacs are similar. They are ready sources of information. They contain brief information. That is why they are known as fact sources. So, but the almanac is general in scope. Yearbook is usually confined to a subject area or a given area, except the encyclopedia yearbooks, which tends to cover general materials. The almanacs contains information from different years, not only the previous year. It will have retrospective information as well. But a yearbook always has information limited to the preceding year. So these are some differences between the yearbook and the almanacs. Another fact source which you should know about is a handbook. Now, these handbooks are compilations of miscellaneous information, usually in very compact and handy form, and they may contain data and procedures and principles and tables and graphs. These are very useful for the scientists and for the technologists. Usually when you go to the doctor's office, you find their handbooks there. When you go to the pharmacies, you find their pharmacopoeia there. These are handbooks, and they consult them as and when they need to make reference to them. So the handbooks also contain large amounts of information, often compressed in a single volume. And that is why we refer to them as fact sources. Manuals, of course, are also fact sources. They are instruction book. And whenever you buy anything, there's a manual, very brief information on how to operate that particular, either a car or a phone or a refrigerator, a washing machine. So they are also limited in scope. They give you just a brief information to enable you perform a very good job. They are also fact sources. Now, the last type of fact source we'll look at is a compendium. Compendiums carry brief information of larger work. So almanacs and yearbooks have many qualities. They have all been lumped together as compendiums. Usefulness of almanacs and yearbooks. Why will you use almanacs? Why will you use yearbooks? Now, you use almanacs and you use yearbooks because of their currency. They have up-to-date information. They provide brief facts. They allow you to follow the trends of events. They can serve as an informal index. They also serve as directory and biographical information, because you can actually find directory information such as names of organization, names of people, or you can even find brief information about people when they were born and when they died. So these are the uses of almanacs and yearbooks. They also enable you to browse. When you're not doing anything, you can actually browse all these masses of unrelated information and then find out what is happening everywhere. So they are useful in browsing, they are useful in getting current information, they are useful in getting brief facts. Now, let's look at directories. Directories. Directories are referred to as a list of persons or organizations systematically arranged, usually in alphabetical or classified order, giving address, affiliations for the individuals, for the officers, and for organizations. Now, you'd use a directory to find out an individual's address or telephone number, or you use a directory to find out the full name of an individual or a firm or even an organization, or even you want to know the particular manufacturer's product or service. Directories are very useful and they give you handy information. For instance, you want to apply to a particular organization, but you don't know the full name of the CEO or the chief executive officer. Now, if you address them by Mr. Mensah, there could be several Mensahs in the office. But if you get the correct title, Mr. Eric Mensah, it goes to the CEO. And you can get that information about the full name of the individual from a directory. Other uses of directories to get the names of presidents. A directory also gives you up-to-date but limited biographical information. So in biographical information, you look for the address of the person, maybe first the name, the address, the age, a few things about the individual. The directory gives you basic biographical information about an individual. Also, directories have served very useful purpose, especially for those carrying out surveys and carrying out in having a random or selective sampling size. Some organizations use directories to be able to send samples of their products to a particular location. Now, how would they get those people in the location? They would use the particular directory and to be able to identify the people in that particular location and serve them samples. This happens a lot in the advanced countries where you'd have so many unsolicited mails in your boxes asking you to respond to a particular taste of a particular product or the color of a particular product, and they use the directories to be able to find out exactly how people feel about such things. So directories are very useful. Now, how do you select directories? To select directories, you need to look at what the community needs. You also need to look at what your library budget is. Directories are not too expensive, and we do have a lot of electronic options for directories. So if you do not have too much money, look for the electronic options, but look for credible directories and look for the electronic options, and then inform your users about those options or those electronic options for directories, so online directories. Now, online directories are also very, very useful because they allow you to search using keywords. So you can search using the Boolean logic, which I said I would explain later, but suffice to note that the Boolean logic has 3 operators: and, or, and not. You use them to combine your keywords to be able to find more information or to limit your information. Now, other selection process for the directories include the cost of hardware, software, and online service charge. You know, I mentioned to you that when it comes to costs in relation to online databases or costs in relation to CD-ROM, it is not just the physical cost of the CD-ROM or online database, but there are other costs, such as the hardware you use, the software you use, the people that you need to even train to be able to help you to use all those ones. Those form part of the cost of these online databases. Now, as I mentioned, there are free directories online, and so what you can do is to provide a link at your terminal just to let your users know that even if you do not have the print directories, you do have the online directories, which can give you the fact sources, give you the quick information that you need. So let's look at types of directories available. We have the directories of directories. We have the library directories, the publishing directories, education directories. And when we come to the education directories, it is one of the directories that you would have to examine physically. We also have foundation directories and grants directories, especially if you want to pursue further studies and you want to find out about scholarships or grants available. This is the directory for you, foundations and grants directories. Other directories are listed. Now, let us look at the last part, which is the evaluation criteria for fact sources. I am going to mention just the main criteria because we have explained them already in session 2. We went into detail, or session 3 went into detail to explain what these criteria mean. So authority, you need to look at the authority of the fact sources. You look at the accuracy. You need to look at the format of these fact sources. These are the 3 important criteria for selecting fact sources, but there are others. But whenever you're going to look at fact sources, look at the authority, look at the accuracy, and look at the format. Others are also included. An important general sources that you will need to examine will be, for Almanac, you need to look at the World Almanac and Book of Facts. For yearbooks, you need to examine physically the Statesman's Yearbook. You are not looking at any handbooks, but if you're doing your work and you find examples such as been listed in this course, please just examine them for your curiosity purposes, such as the Guinness Book of Records. It's a good handbook. So for your activity, you will need to visit a very good library, and for the example of a directory, please examine the Europa World of Learning. For the example of an almanac, examine the World Almanac and Book of Facts, and then also examine a yearbooks, the Statesman's Yearbook, the Yearbook of the Commonwealth, Africa South of the Sahara. Kindly note that when you look at your study guide, I have given you an outline which you should use to examine these materials that I have listed. So refer quickly to your study guideline and then look at how you're supposed to study the Europa World of Learning, the World Almanac and Book of Facts, the Statesman's Yearbook, the Yearbook of the Commonwealth, and Africa South of the Sahara. I have some references for you. Consult these chapters in Kuma and CATS, and you'll be able to have a better understanding of this particular session. Thank you for your attention.